Welcome to the Livfiit Listens podcast, a safe space of growth, personal development, and overall wellness with your host, Olivia Catania. Diving into the realms of all things health, conscious living, mental expansion, and much more, this podcast is designed to help you evolve into your best self and live fit. Let's get into the show. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Livfiit Listens podcast. I am really excited to share this episode with you guys because this is one that is very long overdue. I've been wanting to bring this one to you guys for a while now, and I've definitely gotten quite a few requests from you guys on your guys' end to make an episode kind of on this whole topic, on this genre. And I know how much I would have loved to have a podcast episode like this a couple of years ago. I really needed to hear this, and this is literally going to be pretty much a whole comprehensive checklist, if you will, or at least it will give you really clear guidance, kind of a game plan, I should call it. This is a great game plan if you're someone who's really wanting to call a relationship into your life, or you're really wanting to call love into your life, because I know what it feels like to be like, I have no options. I am so single. Like, am I ever going to meet someone? I haven't talked to anyone in so long. Like, I've been there. That was me a couple of years ago, right before I had met my current boyfriend, which we'll get into all of it. I literally was so stone single for over a year, which just in context of my life is not like me. Like I don't know how to say it without sounding problematic. Like I personally feel like I never have really struggled too much with dating, except for that time before I met my current boyfriend, when it was literally like I was in the Sahara Desert, so stone dry, and I just was like, wow, I have never been this completely single for this long. So this is basically all of the healing and the inner work that I did to get myself energetically ready to have a relationship and to call love into my life. So if this sounds like something that really resonates with you and something that you've been really an area of your life that you've really been wanting to focus on, I know that this is going to be a good one for you. At the end, I'm also going to do a little bit of a summary of all the bullet points as well, so it can kind of be fresh in your mind of what your game plan is. And also, if you want to take notes during this episode as well, that also would not hurt. So before we get into this episode, I do want to share my gratitude as always. So tomorrow I am going to Hawaii, which I'm so excited. By the time this episode is out, I am most likely going to be there. And I have not gone, I'm going to visit Rachel, and I haven't been there literally since February of 2023, which is crazy. It's almost been a year and a half almost, which is nuts. And I feel like I haven't been there in forever, to be honest with you. I feel like I haven't been there since 2022 when I first went there and like kind of lived there for 10 weeks. So I'm super excited. My boyfriend is coming with me. I've never shared Hawaii with anyone. So I feel like my two worlds are colliding. Like I feel like I'm showing him my second life in Hawaii. So I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see Rachel again, and very exciting things are happening in her life that I'm so excited to like be there for and just be witnessing as she's going through different stages of life. So that's really exciting. So it's 3:33 as I looked at the clock. Anyway, okay, let's get into this episode. So the first thing that I did want to touch on, which I do feel like I need to send out a little bit of a trigger warning, but I think when you really can take your power back in your life is when you actually take really full-on radical responsibility and accountability for your life and why things are the way that they are. And I personally feel like singlehood, especially in our society, is very victimized. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but like I feel like a lot of people who are single really tend to play the victim, in the sense of like, I'm just never going to meet anyone. Like the dating pool is absolutely trash. Like our society is so messed up. Like hookup culture is the reason why I'm always going to be single forever. Like there's no good romantic men anymore. There's no good men at all anymore who knows how to treat a woman. Like it's always these external things of like the world is wrong and that's why I am single, or why I can't find a man that treats me well, or I can't get into a relationship. And like I mean this with all love and all respect. Like this is tough love, so that you guys can see the honesty of what's going on, so that then you can make the change, because it's always going to come down to you. Only you can do it. You need to make the change so that then you can call love into your life. So like respectfully, like if you find yourself being chronically single for years and years and years and years, like respectfully, this is going to come off harsh, but like sometimes it needs to be a rude awakening. Like if you are chronically single for years and years and years, and you're wanting to, like it's against your will in the sense of like you would like to be in a romantic relationship, it is mostly your fault. Like, and I know that sounds so aggressive, but again, I'm more so saying this just to really shake everyone into action and to take full accountability. And again, all those reasons that I listed before of like hookup culture and, dating apps are a thing now, and it's hard to find people because people are not as social as they used to be, or there's more like working from home, so it's harder to meet people. Like, all those things still are definitely valid, and especially those feelings that you have about being single really are valid. And I'm not trying to come across as like completely gaslighting or saying you can't feel that way. Like, I totally understand why you feel that way. I had felt those feelings too, so it's totally real and valid. But again, if we want to make a change, if you're wanting to call love into your life, you have to get out of that victim mode of like, oh, I'm just waiting for the world to change. Like, no, you need to change the energy that you're putting out to then be able to attract a partner that treats you well and that you love, and like for you to have a loving, fulfilling relationship. Because that's the thing, love is so energetic, and I feel so passionate about relationships and stuff because I do think that there's such, again, accountability factor of it, but like also love and relationships are not this calculated thing. Like, there's such a fluid, energetic thing. And so being quote unquote lovable or like calling in a relationship, like this episode, just to clarify, is not about you like perfecting your relationship game or like how to play, the hard to get game to get guys to pursue you. Like, that is that's not the vibe of my podcast at all. So if you're new here, might as well set the record straight from now. But I'm speaking more in this podcast episode about how to energetically prep yourself, of how to basically become your best version and become a magnet to then be drawn into a partner that is right for you. And you being single truly is your time to become your absolute best self. And I think that's why I really kind of wanted to start this episode off kind of with some harsh truths or with some tough love, because I have had some people in my life who are single, and I try to very kindly be like, oh, like, well, now is the great time to start working on yourself. Like, now you can use this time to become better. And I get scoffed at as if it's like a jab to them. And that's so not my intention. If that's triggering to someone, or if you guys are listening and that's really triggering to you, like, that's something to look into yourself. If someone were to tell you that being single is the time to become your best self, or if someone tells you that like now's a good time to work on yourself for your next relationship, like, if you truly don't believe that you have anything to work on, if you truly don't believe that you cannot be better in any capacity, that you don't feel like you could be any better of a partner than you are, I don't believe it. And I think there needs to be more accountability and self-awareness in that equation. And so when I'm telling that to you guys, that like being single is your time to become your best self, that's not meant to jab at anyone or to say that you're doing a shitty job. It's more so just to say that everyone has room to improve. I love personal development. I feel like I do quite a bit of work on it. And I still am so far from a perfect partner. And like my boyfriend can attest to that. Like, I still am not the best at my communication skills. Like, there's still things that I struggle with, and there's always things that I can be better at. And so having that self-awareness is absolutely huge if you're wanting to get anywhere to get prepped for a relationship. And furthermore, spoiler alert, if you feel that way now when you're not in a relationship, that you can't improve in any which way, and you're already stubborn, closed-minded, and you're set in your ways, like, how do you think you're going to be compatible in a relationship with another person going forward? Like, relationships are all about compromise, about hearing each other out, about being empathetic, about seeing the situation from the other person's shoes, about being willing to grow and expand and evolve together and like fluctuate in the relationship. Like, that is so important, to be fluid and to be willing to work with your partner and 100% be willing to take accountability for your shortcomings. And so this is kind of getting into a side rant, but it's so incredibly important. It's like one of the number one things that are needed to have a successful, lasting relationship. And so if you can't work on those things or embody those things on your own, when it's just you and you, like, that's going to be a whole different set of problems when you do go into relationships. So that's not even one of my bullet points, but that is a big one that's coming through to me now, is like, really work on your receptivity towards other people's constructive criticism, if that makes sense, and more open-mindedness and having more self-awareness in your actions and your own thought processes and coping mechanisms and all that, because it's really going to carry over into your relationship that you will eventually end up calling in. Okay, anyways, kind of coming back, touching grass again, getting back to my original game plan. I want to bring you guys a little bit down, like kind of on my timeline and my story, just to give you some perspective. All these, I don't want to say tips, all of these steps for the game plan that I have written out, there's about 7 points that I want to touch on here. These are going to be kind of in no particular order. I don't remember like what I embarked on first, but anyways, basically my timeline kind of starts in summer of 2021, and I don't ever want to, sometimes I feel weird like bringing up past relationships, but the point truly is not about them. It's just about like relationships are always going to be our best and greatest teachers. And in 2021, I had a relationship, not anything official. I mean, a relationship just like met another person, we interacted pretty much, and it really sparked a lot of healing and growth in me. Anyway, so I had met this person summer of 2021, and things did not work out between us, thankfully, but it kickstarted so much healing in me because essentially, long story short, it really triggered an abandonment wound with my inner child. And I remember I was so crushed. And again, after me having introspection and reflecting, I realized it was because my inner child, since I come from divorced parents, was like so idealizing, finding like the one, finding my person, finding, you know, essentially my future husband. And so I placed so much weight on that for so long of like, when am I going to meet this person? Who is this person going to be? And so it was kind of, there was a person that I thought had quite a bit of potential for whatever reason, just because I personally had felt connected to them. But basically when things went south, it like really shook up my inner child because she was so crushed. And I realized it was because she was just hoping and waiting for this, basically essentially my knight in shining armor to like somehow take away all the wounds from my childhood of like living within a broken home and like not ever having parents that like represented love to me, you know? So it was basically this idealized version of love that I was just kind of waiting for my husband to come. I thought this person had potential. And so when things didn't work out, my world shattered. My inner child felt so abandoned. She felt so hopeless because she was like, wow, you know, I might not ever get this thing that I was blindly holding faith for so long, like blindly hoping that like, oh, when I get my husband, things will be okay, you know? So basically, long story short, that whole situation had led me to doing a lot of inner child healing, which is my first tip for you guys. The first thing to work on is really work on healing inner child traumas, pains, fears, stuff from your childhood that you find come up in triggers, whatever the case may be, things that you're carrying from childhood really, really deserve attention to really attend to. And I'm going to tell you why. The biggest thing, especially what happens that I see with other people in relationships, there's a concept called trauma bonding. And so, for example, this is such a easy example that a lot of people are going to resonate with or be able to understand. When you were a little girl, if you grew up with a very abusive father, or you grew up with a father who was very, had a lot of emotional outbursts, who wasn't able to really deal with his anger, who was not able to deal with his emotions, and really had just an explosive temper on the family. And like, if he was stressed from work, he came home and blew up on everyone. That is trauma from your childhood, excuse me. That is a form of inner child trauma, because what happens is then you get used to someone that you look up to, someone that you admire, someone that you're supposed to trust. You say, okay, it is okay because I love this father, I love this person, I love my dad. It is okay, and he loves me, and it is okay for him to talk to me this way, meaning this must just be the way that love is. This just must be the way of dynamic of the way that love is. And so you trauma bond to that situation. And so what happens with other people who trauma bond, you could meet someone else to have some sense of a similar situation, or you could meet another man who doesn't know how to handle his emotion, who has a lot of emotional outbursts, who completely projects all of his stresses, all of his low self-esteem onto you by verbally abusing you. And you're not going to think that it's something worth to walk away from, or you're going to put up with it because you put up with it when you were a child with your dad. So that's why it's important to really heal these inner child traumas, because if you don't, you're way more likely to trauma bond and have a trauma-filled relationship in your present day reality, because you've learned to accept toxic, traumatic behavior when you were younger, when you didn't have a choice. And then you end up subconsciously continuing to put up and subconsciously choosing, right? Because what we choose not to say no to, we're still subconsciously choosing. So if you're choosing not to walk away from a toxic, abusive relationship, you're still choosing that relationship. So we end up subconsciously choosing these relationships that are not healthy, that are not toxic, because they honestly still feel safe to your subconscious mind, because it's familiar to you, right? Our subconscious mind loves things that are familiar, loves things that are known. So since being spoken to in that way, even though it's toxic and even though it hurts your feelings, it is still safe and familiar. So your subconscious mind is going to feel okay accepting it, right? It's going to feel less scary to accept that abuse than to walk away from it, because it's kind of all you've known from a young age. So healing, inner child healing, is absolutely huge. For me, I really went back to healing. Again, a big thing for me when I was a kid, because my parents were not together from a really young age for me and just had a really terrible relationship growing up. A big thing that I had to really tell myself is that I am still going to be okay. I just remember when I was a kid, I would always really worry about my family dynamic and like how things would be. And so really going into inner child meditations and like really connecting with my inner child and letting her know that like you are safe now, you are okay. Like almost speaking to your inner child in a motherly way now, like you saying that adult you is going to take care of inner child you, if that makes sense. Another huge thing was also forgiving my parents as well. Looking back now as I'm older, with more compassion, more understanding for the situation, I was able to really go back in and forgive my parents for things that they had done in my childhood and heartbreak that I dealt with from as a child, of never really feeling like I had my family unit anymore. That really was a heartbreak that I had to go through at a young age, that a lot of us have had to go to. I'm not saying that's just like a me victim thing. Like a lot of us have to go through it, unfortunately. And so going through and forgiving those circumstances and making peace with those circumstances and affirming to myself that I am going to be okay was very, very helpful going forward. I wasn't expecting to be going on such rants. I was like, this should be like a decently quick episode. I'm like going off right now. That was number one. Number two, connecting to your feminine energy. This one is very big. I did a whole episode about connecting to your feminine energy. I remember I did get some backlash on that episode. This, again, of course, has nothing to do with however you identify. It's not the point. Like all of us, no matter whether you identify as male, female, whatever it is, we all embody masculine and feminine energy within us. So like, even though I identify as a female, I'm a female, I still have masculine energy within me, just like I have feminine energy within me. But the reason why feminine energy is important, like you have to also think from the spiritual perspective as well, like not even if you don't even resonate with spirituality or anything, like even just kind of from, okay, a logical standpoint, when you look at a relationship, like there's two parts of the whole, right? And so when there's two parts of something, the whole point is to balance each other, right? And it's also to have that law of polarity. It's just like the yin yang symbol. So in a union, right, no matter if you're male, female, or whatever, you still have the sense of duality in the relationship. But at the same time, we mostly still identify with either more so the masculine or the feminine. And so with that, since there's counterparts in relationships, like if you resonate with being more of the feminine, like you need to magnetize yourself to your masculine, if that makes sense. So for me, really honing in on my femininity was something that was really healing in my journey. And furthermore, it went way deeper for me personally, because I realized and came to discover about myself that I really had a wounded relationship to the feminine in general. What do I mean by this? I grew up, again, since my parents were divorced. How do I say this without throwing anyone under the rug? Basically, I was raised, which I spoke about this in the episode about healing feminine energy, which it was a while ago now. If I can link it in the show notes, but I basically was raised under the impression that women just kind of suck, that we're not as fun, that we ruin everything, that we're crazy, that we're insane, that we're psychotic, like not good things, right? Not good things that a young girl should be like, being like, okay, like I'm a female and like I'm going to be all these things when I grow up. Like, no, none of those things are the truth, by the way, but those were things that were projected onto me in times of heartbreaking situations. And so I was under the impression that being a girl wasn't a cool thing, wasn't a good thing, wasn't something to be proud of. And so I had kind of subconsciously come to resent women in a way. And it sounds terrible, but so that's why it was really important for me in terms of healing my feminine energy. Like a huge part of that was simply just becoming grateful and appreciating that I am a woman. And learning all the beauty, like, and seeing all the beautiful parts about being a woman. So that was a huge thing for me, was healing that relationship with being a woman, and like being proud of being a woman, and like knowing there's so many beautiful, amazing things, and that like I am so powerful because I'm a woman. I am so beautiful because I'm a woman. I'm so intuitive because I'm a woman. I'm so magical and fluid and creative, and like so many beautiful things come with being a woman, and really embodying that feminine energy. So that was huge for me. And if you want to know more about things that I did in terms of like to connect to my feminine energy, again, I will have that episode linked down below. But it came down to me just like painting my nails more, wearing more dresses, wearing more feminine style clothing, like painting my nails pink, wearing more pink, like just kind of things that seem pretty stereotypical, really did a lot for me to connect to my feminine energy, playing more, having time, being more creative, really listening to my intuition, having more time for rest and relaxation, just being more in my flow and receptive energy made a really big difference for me. Number 3, which I feel like also I don't remember if I said this, but this is important to my story. I think I was going to go and tell you my timeline, and then I kind of got sidetracked with the inner child healing. Basically, after I'd met that person in 2021, it sparked so much healing for me, more so just like a lot of self-awareness for whatever reason. And so then I was going through that year of like a lot of healing work, which is what I'm running you guys through right now. But I was so dead single for so long, which I don't know how to explain this without sounding like problematic, but I personally before that point, I hadn't really struggled with relationships too much. So that was like, I guess I should say that was my first time ever being that single for that long. So I was for over a year, like completely single, like not talking to anyone, no subtle romantic interests, no crushes, no nothing. Like I was so stone cold single for a year. And truly, by the end of, the last thing that I'm going to share with you, it was like the last thing that I had done. And 2 weeks later, literally 2 weeks later, I had met my now boyfriend, which we have been dating for over a year and a half now, which is absolutely insane. So I feel like I should have put that in the beginning, but that's why I feel so pulled and called to bring this episode to you guys, because it was like upon reflection where I was like, oh my gosh, I really went through like a 6-stage healing process to like prep myself to be ready to meet Brian. So anyways, going back, number 3, this is also a big one. All of these are big, to be honest. They're all equally important. Fully forgiving and detaching from past lovers, okay? This is huge. If you're carrying any type of resentment, if you're carrying still a lot of pain or traumas, like you are not going to be ready to call in a healthy relationship, because you are just going to continue creating from that past energy that you're marinating in, pretty much. So you really want to do what you can to fully forgive your partner and really detach from them. This is easier said than done. Of course, this is the hardest part of getting over a breakup for so many people for obvious reasons. And if you are trying to call in a healthy relationship, like you need to be in a healthy standing yourself, because everything is completely a mirror. And if you don't believe that, like think about your past dating record. Honestly, I think, like I said in the beginning of the video of the episode, about how relationships are your biggest teacher, like they're your biggest teacher because they are your greatest mirror. Like you are attracting people with the same depth that you have met yourself. You're attracting people with similar traumas to you. You are attracting people with a similar amount of healing as you. Like if you find yourself continuously meeting or running into people or having relationships with people who honestly, respectfully suck, like you have to look inward, because you clearly are a match for them in some capacity, or else you wouldn't be in relationship to them, because there would be no resonance. So in order for there to be resonance, like there has to be some sort of mirroring there. And so you need to look within and clear those things so that you can then become a match to something healthier, because you're healthy and whole on your own, right? So things that helped me do this, right, to fully forgive and detach from my past lovers, like it was more so about changing the narrative and looking about, okay, what did these people teach me, right? How are they helping me on my path of growth and evolution? Be thankful for your era of the time that you did have with them. Be thankful for the time that your relationship did last, and fully work on just accepting of it coming to an end, right? There's that common saying for a reason, right? If people are in your life for either a season, a reason, or a lifetime, I think is what it is. A reason, a season, or a lifetime. And, fully embody that and accept that and acknowledge that, and just know that like not everything is meant to last forever. And you need to have the trust in that as well, and know that if it was meant to last forever, they wouldn't have gone away. It is what it is. And you have to actually be thankful because the universe took it upon itself to get rid of this person from your life, because that's how much they were not serving you anymore. That's how much they were not in alignment with where you were going. And that is so something to be thankful for, especially when we can't even see it. Like, especially right now, if you're going through some sense of a breakup and you are struggling so much to accept your guys' ending, you have to be like, thank you so much, because that means you yourself were not even any sense of awareness that this was not good for you anymore, that this wasn't meant for you anymore. And so the uni took this upon themselves to clear it for you. Like, that's something to so be thankful for. And I promise in the future, it's all going to make sense as to why they were stripped from your life in the first place. And I know so many people are going to roll their eyes when they hear that, but it's true. And you can roll your eyes at me now, but in 3 years, you're going to be like, she was right. She was right. Okay, next one. Number 4, working on yourself. Okay, circling back to my first little, mom speech in the beginning about why it's so important to work on yourself. This is huge. Similar to kind of what I was talking about, how relationships are a mirror. It's the same thing. This is your time to work on yourself. This is your time to be your best self. This is your time to essentially become the person you want to date. Like, it is so true that if you are just going to call in your equivalent essentially. And also, if you work on yourself and you become better, you are then stepping up your game, stepping up your value to meet and align with and resonate with higher value people, right? So if you want to meet, especially today's day and age on social media, everyone's talking about having high standards and getting the ick and all this sort of stuff, which is fine. Have your high standards, right? But are you holding yourself to those high standards? And that's what not a lot of people want to hear. And I can kind of get a little spicy about this because I believe so much in radical responsibility, and I believe so much in following through on your word, right? And so it's so easy to cast this blame on other people, right? Saying we have shitty men, or these people are this and this and that. But it's like, are you holding yourself to that standard that you are being so harsh on everyone else about? Like, are you as harsh on yourself about holding yourself to your own standards as you are about the people you go on first dates with? Like, that's really something to sit with yourself and, again, have that self-awareness about, and be really brutally honest with yourself if you're really wanting a change. So when I say work on yourself, this is working on healing your triggers. And you don't need to be in a romantic relationship to do these things. This can be coming from your friendships, from your family, from you being triggered when you're in traffic. Like, all those things are going to a deeper rooted cause that are pointing to something else in your life, or are stemming from something else. And they're all surfacing to show you things that you need to heal and work on. So working on your triggers, right? Doing better about handling situations when you're feeling triggered or feeling angry or feeling frustrated. Are you doing what you can to cope with it? Are you having healthy coping mechanisms? Are you able to control your temper more? Are you able to better communicate your feelings now when you're upset or triggered, right? So that's a huge one. Work on expressing your needs, right? Work on your communication patterns. Again, and all these can be practiced with family members. If my dad says something that's triggering me, how am I responding? How am I going to react to that trigger? How am I managing that trigger now, right? If my feelings are hurt, how am I going to express that? How am I going to communicate that, right? Like, all of those things are so important. Focus on your habits, focus on your health. Like, this is the best time to really become your best you. You have the time to do it. And again, it's going to prep you for a really beautiful, healthy relationship that is going to match you. So that's huge. Next one is romanticizing your life. I love this one as well. This is so good just to help raise your energy and raise your vibe, because the matter of the fact is, if you're low vibe all the time, if you're constantly sulking about being single, that you're never going to meet anyone and that you're going to be alone forever and your energy is closed. Like, when you're out and about and you can just tell like someone's like not having a good day, or like when you walk into a room with your friends, like you can tell if your friend is kind of bummed out or if they're super happy and stoked. Like, energy is just a feeling, and it's not even something that we need to have all these words to explain, because we all can feel it, right? And so it's like same thing here. It's like, you're not going to be approached, or you're not going to be open to have someone come approach you, or you're not going to feel in the headspace to go approach someone else if you're feeling super super low vibe all the time and you're sulking all the time, like your energy is quite literally closed. When we want to have an inviting energy, if we want to be open to interactions, situations, and experiences with new people. So when I say romanticize your life, this is take yourself on dates. I remember I'd go to the bookstore a lot and I would get dressed up, or I would go get coffee and get a matcha, or I would do work at a coffee shop. Literally anything. I would go shopping. Take yourself on little dates. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go out to a sit down dinner, which it is empowering to do that by yourself. I have done that as well too, but just work on dating yourself. Do things that are fun. Do things that without having to wait for someone to do them with. Okay. Also, practice gratitude as well. Be so thankful that you have a car to drive when you're going to get your coffee. Like, romanticize it. Being like, I'm so thankful I have this car to drive. I'm so thankful for all this good music that I have playing through my speakers. I'm so thankful that I have money to go get a coffee. I'm so thankful that my favorite coffee shop is in business and that it's open right now. I'm so thankful that I have the freedom to go and get a coffee or whatever. For me, it's a matcha. But whatever it is, like, really bask in that gratitude and let that be something that really saturates your cells with joy and gratitude. Another thing is learn to enjoy your own company, which is coming with like going on dates and just spending time with yourself is huge, because you really want to work on I always say this, when you want to work on a relationship with a friend, you have to spend time with them, right? In order to get to know them and then to order to cultivate love for that person. And so it's the same thing for yourself. Like you need to spend time with yourself in order to get to know yourself more, have a clear sense of self and know who you are, so that you can then have a sense of love for yourself and really cultivate that self-love. And so another thing that I think a lot of people overlook, I should say, is that you really need to get used to receiving love, because a lot of people are comfortable with giving love, but they're not comfortable with receiving it. And that is really huge to prep yourself for a relationship, is getting used to receiving love so that you're not closed off to it when it does come your way. This way you'll actually be receptive when love is being offered to you from a potential partner, right? And so you need to get used to receiving love, even if it's from yourself. And that will make you more open and receptive and become more comfortable in the face of you receiving love. I think as well, this also helps with your self-image a ton, because I think a lot of people who struggle with receiving love, for whatever reason, they don't feel like they are worthy of love. That's why it's so hard for them to receive it. So you giving yourself self-love, and that can come from you being kind to yourself in the mirror, by you giving yourself compliments, by you appreciating and being proud of the hard work that you've put into projects. Like, all of those are little doses of love that you're giving to yourself, or even following through on promises that you set to yourself, even eating healthy and taking care of your body. All of those are little doses of self-love, and it gets you used to receiving love and truly feeling deserving of it, and getting comfortable basking in that receiving mode. Because when you are not comfortable in that, that's when you subconsciously are pushing love away all the time, and it's hard for anyone to get through, because that's when you have a wall up. You basically have like a one-way lane, like kind of those things when you go into the like those parking lots and the spikes are on the ground, so you can only go in one direction. Like, your spikes are angled so that love can come out, so you can give love, but it doesn't allow for love to actually come in with you. So that is super important. Next one, this is going to be my second to last one, which this one was so huge. And this was the thing that I completely overlooked. This was my missing piece for me. Again, each of these are going to have a different weight in your own journey, but this one was huge for me specifically, and it is cord cutting. I needed to do this literally a year ago, a year sooner than I had done it. Cord cutting. Cord cutting is essentially cutting the energetic tie between you and past relationships, okay? This is so important. So basically, when you are in relationships with people, really any interaction, it is an exchange of energy, okay? So when you are especially in a connected, deep romantic relationship with someone, you are really cording to them energetically because of all the situations you've shared, all the words that you've shared, all of the intimacy that you've shared. So it really can go very, very deep. And so it's very on the subconscious level, but you most likely are still carrying energy from your exes, and they're carrying energy from you. So this was so big, and a great way to kind of tangibilize. I love when I make up my own words. A great way to make this tangible, a good example, is this. This is something that really happened to me a lot, and I would get so frustrated every time it would happen. How many of you have had the cycle of the return of the exes? Okay? You know what I'm talking about. Especially like when your exes are coming back, like every 6 months or so, you get the text like, hey, it's been a while, like, hope you're doing well. Or like the weird Snapchat message of like, oh, it's just like a Snapchat memory, like thinking of you. Or like someone slides into your DMs and you're like, oh, like remember, XYZ or whatever, like they respond to your story for something. Or they get a random follow request from an ex who like unfollowed you a little bit ago. Like, you know what I'm talking about? For me, that would happen to me like clockwork. And when I tell you, almost every single one of my exes that I ever had spoken, like any sort of romantic relation with, like when I tell you, they would all come out of the woodworks, like within like a 2 to 4 week period. All of them will have had reached out to me in some sense. Again, even if it was like a follow request on Instagram, it would happen like clockwork. Like every few months, every 6 months or so, they would all come out, and it was cyclic. And it would drive me nuts because I'd be like, I do not want these old people, Uni. Like, I want to move forward. I want someone new. I have no interest in these people. And every time I would ignore them, I wouldn't respond, or I would leave them on red or whatever. I like wouldn't entertain it because I personally thought that's what I needed to do to tell the uni that like I was choosing someone new. And eventually when it happened again, this was like probably a month of meeting my now boyfriend. It happened again. The ghosts of my boyfriend's past all came flooding back. And instead, I thought to myself, I was like, every time I keep ignoring them, the same shit happens. They keep coming back. So clearly that's not working. So for whatever reason, I decided to actually do the opposite. And I don't even really fully know why this worked, but like, here's something for you guys to try. I actually entertained it. So one of my past exes was like, hey, like I would love to go get coffee with you or whatever. Something like they wanted to meet up. And I actually said this time, I actually answered and I was like, sure, like, let me know when's a good time for you. And they had read it and they never answered. And I think it was more so about me. It was more so from their perspective of them like constantly getting rejected by me, which made them want to keep trying, if that makes sense. And so by me actually turning around, made the game not fun anymore, if that makes sense. It's like playing a game of tag. Like if I stop running and I like turn around on the right there, they're like, oh, it's no fun. Like you're right there. I can just tag you and now you're it. And that's it. And so that's kind of like what it felt like to me with that person specifically. Like I stopped being out of reach, if that makes sense. And I stopped running. So there was nothing for them to chase anymore. And I had not heard of that person since, which I was like, hallelujah. Another thing that I did, which a lot of you guys may be like, no way, like, why would you do that? But I swear it really helped clear the energy of the situation because there was a lot of resentment energetically in the dynamic between me and past relationships. So there was 2 ex-boyfriends specifically that I had walked away from them. I had broken up with them essentially. And I literally reached out to them. At this point, it's like 2 or 3 years later, but they would still be coming back to me every few months, trying to make contact, trying to reach out. And I quite literally openly apologized for any pain that I had caused them, for just anything, like especially for one of them specifically. It was a time in my life where I was way more in an avoidant attachment style, and I just apologized for how avoidant I was in the relationship. To another one that I really walked away from, I just apologized for the heartbreak that I had caused him, and just acknowledging the great relationship that we did have. And I think that finally gave those men the closure that they really had needed and really cleared up any residual energy that was between us. And again, I kid you not, I have not heard from either. Well, I have heard from one of them since, but it was not, it truly was genuinely like in a friendly way of something that like was worth a conversation that had come up. But other than that, like I have not, they haven't been in my space. They haven't been in my energy. And it was really, it's kind of like fascinating if you think about it, but I really think that sometimes if you find your ex is constantly coming back, like there is residual energy that is there. And I think taking the high route really does wonders. Again, this is not permission to go back into toxic relationships or to feed into toxicity. My past relationships really were not toxic. Like there was no toxic energy in them. So I think it really was just more so about me doing my piece to put the relationship to rest and put the energy in our relationship to rest. That really did a lot. And the last thing I want to say in this topic of cord cutting, another huge, powerful thing. I'm saying all these because it was in the umbrella of cord cutting, but I did this in different methods with different boyfriends, if that makes sense. I feel like I have like a laundry list of boyfriends. I really don't, but I'm just saying like with each individual person, like it was obviously a unique situation. And so that's kind of, almost taking you through what I did for each one. So a huge one that was super impactful. It was a detachment meditation. This was freaking huge. I basically did a meditation where I again detached from the energetic cord from this other ex, essentially. And I went to a deep meditation. It really wasn't even intentional. It ended up being a guided meditation that I found that I was doing that was like recorded. And it just so happened to be a detachment meditation. And it was so powerful because for so long I was working on releasing this person, and it was a moment of like, oh my gosh, I did it. Like I really felt the difference energetically of like really fully releasing any residue of their energy. And I essentially got into a deep meditation and I just visualized this big anchor that was in my chest, or not an anchor, a hook, that was hooked into my chest. And I visualized myself taking it and literally taking it out of my chest, taking the hook out of my chest and dropping it and finally being released and letting that cord go. And I finally basically energetically released that ex's energy from me. And I called my own energy back to me and I visualized myself healing and becoming whole again. I was crying in the meditation. Like I felt it of like, oh my gosh, like I really finally released this person. It was so emotional and it was really so beautiful. And again, it was a really big testament of like, yes, we definitely are holding on to people's energy after relationships and things like that. And again, the longer in a relationship with someone or the deeper the relationship is, the deeper and more potent their energy is going to live in you and vice versa. So doing a detachment meditation, releasing their energy from you, calling your energy back is huge. And I kid you not, literally 2 weeks later, I met my now boyfriend. It was crazy. And I felt the shift in me of like finally not feeling like I had all these people's energy in my field and feeling like I didn't have this like weird hovering of past boyfriends' energy. I don't know if that's going to sound a little too woo-woo for you guys, but I know some of you guys are going to be all over and are actually going to try it. And I know it's going to make the world of a difference because that was a rat race that I was stuck in for so long of like, I don't want these people. I'm going to ignore them so that they don't come back. And I'm like, telling the uni that I want someone new by not answering them, but it really just kept that stagnant, old, stuck energy between us, and that's what was causing them to continue to come back. So facing them, opening up the conversation again, acknowledging our past relationship, apologizing for the shortcomings that I had in the relationship and the pain that I had caused, really finally put it to rest, cleared up the energy, gave everyone the closure that they needed. They felt more at peace about what was going on. They felt like they kind of had justice in a way. And again, this is not in any egoic way. And that's the thing, like when you're looking for true love, you need to act in alignment with true love. And by me doing those things of apologizing, of acknowledging their pain and hurt that they went through, like that for me was me acting fully in love, out of love, and being very empathetic and compassionate towards them. And I think, again, if you're not wanting to do that out of the sense of not wanting to swallow your pride, that is another great area for you to work on as well. Your humility and an ego death for you to really step into your higher self and live in love to then call love into your life. And the last thing that I want to touch on, which this has gotten so long, the last little piece is detach from needing others' validation. Basically, what I mean by this is not getting so hung up on when a new lover does come into your life, because I know once you do all these things, you guys, I promise, you're going to be a magnet for love. Your energy is going to be so crisp and clean and clear and just angelic and so high vibrational. You're not going to be able to help but like have all these men be on you, calling you, like just being so magnetized to you. So when that does happen, a big thing for me was remaining detached in the sense of like, because that happened to me in the past of like, oh my gosh, finally, like someone's interested in me, you know, now I'm so invested in it. And I put so much of my worth and there was so much riding on them. Oh my God, I can't speak. There was so much riding on them liking me back. And it just got messy. Then it made me be acting from like a desperate, needy energy, which like no one finds that attractive. You know what I'm saying? So remaining detached and not needing others' validation was really huge for me. And this was something I practiced with my now current boyfriend, which we've been together for a year and a half now, like I said. And I basically, when I first met him, fun fact, when I first met him, he was supposed to be moving to Australia for the next year, literally 3 weeks later. And so I think it was the perfect test. Literally, I really do. That's why I feel like I really went through like a relationship school before I met my boyfriend, because everything was almost basically like I could make a textbook about it. Like that's how like sequential it was in a way. So anyways, he comes into my life. As soon as I met him, I was like, yes, like there is so much romantic potential here. My intuition like just knew, but I was like, okay, but he's leaving in 3 weeks. So like, I have to like remain detached. Like there's nothing to attach myself to. I'm just going to remain super detached. Like the uni brought this into my life just for something fun. I'm going to enjoy it while it lasts, be completely detached, honor its era. Even if it's only for 3 weeks, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to live in love, and I'm just going to bask in this and be super present and not worry about the ending or try to control the future or anything. I was super present, super detached. And for those 3 weeks, I fully was like, I'm never going to see this person again. But I was so at peace with it because I just was so present and I was so accepting. And I kid you not, he left to go to Australia, and we still remained, he was still texting me, even though, again, really, truly, genuinely, like I say that with a hand over my heart, I truly never thought I was going to see him again. And I was okay with that, and I was at peace with that. And literally 3 weeks after he left, he told me he was coming back home. And, if I ever get him on the podcast, maybe he'll share it for himself. But he really came back so that he could date me. And that's what it is. And now we've been dating for a year and a half. So really remaining detached in that also allowed the seedling of a new relationship to really have the space to flourish on its own, if that makes sense. Because when you come really attached, that's when there tends to be a sense of control, which tends to smother the energy in the relationship, and nothing can really ever grow there. So remaining detached and allowing the flow to do its own thing allows it to flourish on its own. And that's always what we want, because it always will work itself out in that sense. So that was so much. I really, really, really hope that this was just helpful for you guys. I feel like I could go so deep into every bullet point, even deeper than I already did. So as a little recap, again, respectfully, if you're chronically single, it is your fault. I feel like there's going to be people who are so mad at me that I'm saying that. But I'm sorry. I'm trying to, this is like the tough love friend that we need, okay? Take radical responsibility. If you're single, if you're really wanting to call love into your life, know that you have the power to change that. It's all going to start within you. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is work on inner child healing, right? We're going to try to resolve any past traumas that we're carrying, right? Any, negative programmings that we have from our childhood. Number 2, we're going to be connecting to our feminine energy again, right? Because if you currently resonate with being the feminine in a polar relationship, you need to connect with that feminine energy to then magnetize yourself to your masculine. Okay. So connecting to your feminine energy is number 2. Number 3 is fully forgiving and detaching from past lovers. Think about, what did they teach you? Be thankful for your guys' era. Be accepting that it has come to an end. Okay. Number 4, work on yourself, right? This is the time to work on your triggers, work on expressing your needs, your communication patterns, your habits, your health. That is going to play a huge role in how you actually show up in your relationship, and also huge in the type of person you're going to be attracting into your next relationship. Number 5 is to romanticize your life, right? We want to keep our energy and vibe up so that we're receptive. We have this inviting energy, right? So we're a magnet to those around us. So that is going to be things like taking yourself on dates, practicing gratitude, learning to enjoy your own company, and really getting comfortable with receiving love, even if it's from yourself. Number 6, cord cutting. Cord cutting. Huge. Okay. This could be a detachment meditation. This could you literally be reaching out to exes. Okay. Which is quite bold and brave. I'm proud of you. You can do it. I did it. It's not that scary. It feels good when it's said and done, honestly. If you feel like you have a cycle of exes reaching out to you all the time, This is so big. Cord cutting. Release their energy from your energy field, and you need to call your energy back from them. And then lastly, when you when you do have those little seedlings of a relationship coming your way of love interests, really work on staying detached and not needing others' validation in this situation, not needing that partner's validation. Remain detached, because that is when things can actually flourish and have room to breathe. So those are all of my tips. That's the game plan for you to call in a relationship. I'd be so curious if you guys really take this advice literally and like put it into practice, which I hope you do. That's like the whole point of all of my episodes, is to give us like tangible action steps. Please send me a message how this does impact your love life in any which way. I'd be so curious to know. I would love to know. You can message me on Instagram. My Instagram is @Livfiit. I think this is a super important and powerful episode. Share this with your friends who also are single girlies. Share this with your siblings. Share it with anyone who you feel like needs it. And again, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts just by messaging, shooting me a DM on Instagram. And for the affirmation for this episode, it is: every day I am doing the healing work to call in a healthy, loving, prosperous relationship. That's it, you guys. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the absolute world to me if you could leave a rating and or review, depending on if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Again, I really hope this podcast brought you some value, and I'm sending you guys so much love, and hopefully I'll see you in my next episode. Peace out.